Hello, everybody. It is Amanda Jewson, host of the Slumber Party podcast, sleep consultant for your babies, and general nap enthusiast. Could go for a nap right now, except I won't because I have an amazing, super exciting guest today. We have Renee Grenon, aka the Mom Room. And we were just kind of the reason why I kind of halted our conversation, Renee, is I was like, we need to like put this into the podcast. But it, you were just saying that people don't know your name and that many people will just call you the Mom Room, which has happened to me. Like when I did your podcast, people would be like, do you know the Mom Room? It's like, well, I was on her podcast. I guess I do now. But what is your name? Are you comfortable sharing your first and last name?
Yes. So my name is Renee Rena Grenon, but
Okay.
on Instagram it says Renee Rena. So I
Mm-hmm.
think people
That's what I thought
assume,
your name was.
yeah, they assume that that's my
Yeah.
last name, but it's not. And then my husband has a different last name, and so I think it's just all very confusing to people. Um, but yeah, people can call me Renee. They can call me Rena. They can call me the Mom Room, I guess.
I've had it when I was living in my old neighborhood in Toronto. I would be walking down the street and people would just go, "Baby's fast asleep," and I'd be like, "Yeah, that's my business. That's not my name." So I've had this similar thing happen to me before. Um, I was on your podcast, and like, truth be told, there's like I'm going to say something that's going to sound somewhat insulting, and then we're going to get to a good part. So stay with me. But
Yep.
there's so many like mom people, right? Like myself included. There's 487 sleep consultants. And I remember someone being like, oh, you should be on the Mom Rooms podcast. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then like I checked you out and I'm like, oh my God, this person is so friggin' hilarious. Your TikToks are just hitting a spot for moms and parents that are just, it's outstanding. I am truly amazed at the level of your creativity. I want you to tell me.
Aw.
I know it's so good though. Honest, I love doing TikToks. Like I have a theater degree first, so part of me is like, oh, I love them, and when I friggin' nail it, I'm so excited. But do you know the amount of time I sit here thinking about TikTok ideas, and I get like one a week? You're banging them out like multiple times a week. Like your creativity is truly, it's so impressive. And I mostly wanted to have you on to kind of brag about what you're doing, talk about where this came from, and learn more about you, and then also steal your secrets for creativity.
That's amazing. Yeah, I used to put out, so when I was really into TikTok, I was putting out 3 a day, like morning, lunch, and then before bed, I would put 3
Oh
out.
my
And so
god.
when Milo, I would either record them, and this was during quarantine, and I would record them with Milo, or I would record a bunch while he was napping, and then you just save them in your drafts, and then I would release them. Like I have so many drafts because I find sometimes I'll get ideas or I'll hear an audio that's a trend and I'll record it, but I don't have any text attached to
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
So like I have drafts sitting in my TikTok that it's a certain song playing over or like an audio, but I don't have an idea for the context in which
Right.
I should put it out. So
Yeah.
they just sit there, and most of my ideas come from a situation that happens in my actual life, like with Milo or with my husband. And then I think about it and I'm like, wow, that's actually hilarious if you like put a little twist on it, or, you present it in a certain way. Or I watch TikToks
Yes.
and I get ideas because it'll be, something like a single 20-year-old something guy does. But I'm like, oh, if I like switch that into mom life, you can make
Yeah.
it in a different way and be funny. So yeah, like that's why I try and keep up with watching TikTok
Yeah.
because that's where I get ideas.
Yes. Yes. And I came to TikTok late. I know that there's like a million TikToks. So guys, if you're not on TikTok, and I know who you are, like I don't understand. That was me. Okay. I was like, look, I'm in my late 30s. I don't have to take on every trend. I don't have to do all the things. I'm not on Twitter. I don't have to be on TikTok. It feels like something for someone else. And then it was on, I think it was like April 2020. So like early lockdown, nothing's going right. And I was like, fine, I'll look at TikTok. And I laughed so hard. I'll never forget it. My husband and I was like, I haven't laughed this hard in so long. The creativity in 15 to 30 seconds to a minute is just outstanding. When I'm in a bad mood or if
Yeah.
I'm having a bad day, I will go on TikTok to like jump it up a bit because for sure something is going to make
Yeah.
me howl. And I know their algorithm stuff is like probably criminal, but it's so in my brain that it knows exactly what I need. It's so niche. I will think of something, but no, this is where I'm at now. So I was like, I hate talking about this because it's so political. I want to lose some weight right now. I'm not really obsessed with the idea, nor do I feel like I need to. I just don't feel good in my clothes right now because I spent a year inside and that's all there is to it. And it's going to take me a long time and I don't feel like anyone needs to. Okay, is that enough disclaimers? But anyway,
Yeah.
now TikTok is like, guess what? Here's some weight loss TikToks for you. And here's some, and I don't even know, it's like listening to me.
Yeah.
But then some of the stuff is actually really helpful. I'm like, yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
should maybe think about that. Or just like, I'll get into like, I'll think cat TikToks are funny. And my favorite one is that I got one day that was like, if you're watching this, you're probably a black woman, and I was like, I think you might have missed the mark on that, but maybe I post so much about like equity and diversity, it like thinks I'm a black woman, and I was very complimented by that. I was like, oh, sweet. Um, Anyway, okay, so but behind all of your amazing TikToks is like an extremely smart person who has her PhD in psychology, and you're in the midst of writing a book. And I would love to know all about that. Like, I'm just trying to think of like you sitting at home, you're like, all right, got all these PhD thoughts, and like, how do they connect for you? Like, where did this idea come from?
For the book?
Well, just like I keep thinking about like, you're like, I have a PhD in psychology, which is not what you would like, that's not a natural transition to like TikTok mom star. Forgive me. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not, it's just like, wow, tell me how you got there.
Yeah. So PhD, it's funny. So I recorded a podcast this morning, a solo one for mine that's going to be released tomorrow. And I was answering questions that people sent me. And someone was like, how do you stay so motivated? And I was thinking about it. And I've always been like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it started out with sports. Like I was heavily like laser focused into sports. And then in university, when I came back to my hometown and decided I'm not going to play volleyball anymore, I'm just going to focus on school, then I was like laser focused on school. And that's
Mm-hmm.
all like, applying for scholarships and working till I got this scholarship and this funding and got into this program and this program. And so I just kept going until I couldn't go anymore. So that was a PhD. And then, yeah, it's crazy. And then
And they're like, go home. There's no more school for you.
it's so funny. I remember one year at the beginning of September, I put out a post on Instagram. This was like a few years ago. And I was like, go like first day of grade 33 or like something like that. Cause
I love
and
that.
yeah, it's so true. Yeah. So I finished my PhD literally almost exactly a year ago today, which was a few days before we were in quarantine in Toronto.
Yeah.
And So then I was in quarantine with Milo and I couldn't do anything. I was finished my PhD now. I had nothing to put my focus into. So I started like really creating content like for the blog on Instagram and then in TikTok, and then it just kept growing and growing, and then I was like, how can I, get this information and this content out in a different way where I could have guests
Yeah.
on and hear other people's perspectives? And then it turned into a podcast.
Hmm.
So now it's like I just put all my energy from school to now into doing
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
You're like, I'm kind of similar in this way. I mean, you're saying something very complimentary about yourself, and I'm like, yeah, me too. I'm the same. So I'm aware of what that sounds like. But I am very motivated to like, once I get into something, it's like, well, I want to be the best at that. I would like to
Yeah.
be as good as I possibly can. I do call myself like a type like B plus, like I'm comfortable with being like number 2 or 3 out of 100. Like that's amazing. I don't need to be number one,
Hmm.
but like a top 2 or 3, and I'll work hard to get there. So I might not be
Hmm.
as hardcore, but I do share that. I do understand that, like, well, this is going well. Where can I go with this? What opportunities
Yeah.
does this bring to
Hmm.
me? um I had a thought while you were talking about TikTok, and I was thinking that what's cool about following you is I find like your TikTok and your blog and your Instagram all have a really different tone, right? Like I think that you're like a serious writer. Like your blogs are pretty like nice, and they're nice, but they're a different tone from someone who puts on like a baseball cap and pretends to be your toddler, right? It's like you would expect the same sort of like vibe, but I feel like you write in a smart, intelligent way on your blog. Your Instagram is kind of like your day to day. My other favorite thing about your Instagram is when you take like hater comments and you just respond to them really nicely. Like,
Yes.
you share them. Like I get a little bit of hate, but I'm not as popular as you. You get some wild
Which is
things.
expected, right? Because I
Yeah.
talk about things that people don't want to talk about. And I understand that people are going to see certain things and get their guard up. And their response to that in the moment is to write something that's kind of judgmental or shaming in the comments.
Yeah.
And I totally get that.
Yeah.
So I just like people always ask, like, how do you respond to people in that way, or how do you keep putting stuff out there when you get negative feedback? And then there's people that say don't even respond, like don't even bother, but I can't just let it go when it's something
I
that
know.
is when it's a comment that moms get regularly and I know that other moms get it. I have to respond because
I know.
I want people to see how I respond so that they can look at that and be like, yeah, like, see, I don't feel bad anymore about doing this, or, sending my child to daycare or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think that's super important to respond and then share the response.
Yeah.
And at first I would feel a little bit bad about it. And then I'm like, no, like they're publicly writing this comment on
Yes.
my profile. I will share it. Like, and that's
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes. I yeah, I mean, it's hard to deal with that, but I feel the same sort of responsibility. Like I don't really get a lot of hate stuff. I think like people who follow me are generally on board, but like sleep training is divisive. It's controversial. I hate saying it's controversial. It's controversial like vaccines are controversial in my opinion, where it's like
Yeah.
safe, effective, uh, studied for 4,700 bazillion times, but still there's a controversy. I mean, okay. But yeah, that's sort of how I feel about
It's
sleep
a it's a
training.
it's a it's like everything. There's so many topics in parenting that are that way when they shouldn't
Yeah.
be. Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? Like
Yes.
breastfeeding versus formula, daycare versus not daycare, sleep training
Yeah.
versus not sleep training. People like to be very divided on these topics.
Yes.
And then as a
Yes.
mom, it's also awkward to state your opinion or where you stand on these things because you know that other people are on either end of the argument. So it's uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be.
This is my whole life. This is like me at a dinner party meeting someone I don't know, and they're like, "Hey, what do you do?" And I'm like, um, so let's
I'm a
back it
serial
up.
killer.
Yeah, like I feel like that would go over better in some circles. Well, I
Yeah.
am a serial killer, and they're like, you know what? I get it. I get it. You can't help it.
Yeah.
But I feel like, yeah, I know. And mostly people are polite and don't say anything. But I remember so one of my very first forays, like, so I'm just fresh 4 years ago, finished my training, ready to go. And I remember I was like, do workshops at baby stores. I'm like, oh, how lucky am I? In my neighborhood, there's a baby store right across the street. I can just go over. I know that they have a workshop space that they're dying to have people in. I'll email her. How lucky. So I email her about like what I do, blah, blah, blah. And like the response I received back was so cold and mean. And it was like, we don't accept that here. There will never be a partnership between my business and the work that you do. And it stung.
Oh boy.
And I'm kind of happy though I got that a little bit early, so I wasn't like walking around being like, "Wah!" Like it was a little bit of maybe indicative of the bubble that I was in, that everyone I knew was very comfortable with sleep training. I knew that there was like some feelings about it, but I felt like it was very fringe. And now that I do this work, I find like, oh no, that's it. This is a huge, huge divisive issue. There are people who don't
Mm-hmm.
even want to like tell other people or their family members that they're doing it. Like
Mm.
it's it's wild. So yeah, I mean, all this to, bring it back to the idea that like on my Instagram, I feel like my feed has like self-selected out, right? Where you hit so many issues that you're going to piss off at least one follower.
That's for sure.
They're like, I was down with the daycare. I was down with the sleep training. How dare you talk about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. But it's such a weird thing because, like, I have friends who co sleep with their kids. I have
Mm-hmm.
friends who never sleep trained. I don't feel anything about it. And I don't think that they feel particularly demonized by me either. I don't think that like sleep training is something you have to do. Like, do you have friends with different parenting styles?
Oh, totally. And
Yes.
this is part of the, like, I always talk about in motherhood, like approaching other moms with empathy as opposed to your ego. Because,
Yeah.
and sleep training is a perfect example. It's easy for me to look at someone else and say, how dare you sleep train? Well, yeah, my husband got up with Milo until he was 11 months old. My husband slept with the monitor because my husband can wake up and fall back
Mhm.
asleep like a champion because he's so
Mhm.
used to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't breastfeeding. We started giving him formula. It's very easy for me to say that. But,
Mhm.
somebody else doesn't have that. If I had to do everything on my own, let's say I was a single mom, we
Mhm.
would have sleep trained as soon as possible because I could not
Mhm.
function. So you have to understand that other people's situations are not your situation. That is so important for everything and all the
And,
decisions that we have to make.
and that we could both be in the same room experiencing life at the same time in the same place with the same situations, and knowing that we would experience those same exact things differently is very different.
Yes.
Which is what I mean, I do, I sleep train babies for a living, and I can have like two clients with the exact same profile, and how the parents were coping are different, how the baby is doing is different.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so I just like with anything, like I have only love in my heart for people who don't want to or can't sleep train or whatever. I just find it so strange to be like so mean on the internet. The only time I've ever been really mean on the
Mhm.
internet is when like a particular group, well, it's either I'm writing my politicians about COVID response, which is totally bad. And then I say things like, I will fund your opponent with every dollar that I can. That's what I've said that. Okay. Which I feel like is fine. Or when someone is being um, like what's the word, like exclusionary in some way, or like
Mm-hmm.
just being a gross like racist or sexist, and I might say something a
Mm-hmm.
little like snappy, but I don't think I'd be like, you should die. Like it's just so crazy. Um
Yeah.
yeah, it's the internet is just such a wild place. Okay, I have a question. So you're writing a book, and I want to know about it so I can buy the book.
Slowly but surely. That's the thing. So, uh, TikTok, Instagram, I'm trying to get one YouTube video up a week, the blog, the podcast. It's like all, but before it was mostly just TikTok and Instagram. So it was like golden. But once you start adding all these things, it's hard to not have other things suffer. And I
Mhm.
really want to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. And I want to write, each chapter will be kind of one of the topics that I talk about often. So, one chapter will be about mom guilt, one chapter will
Mhm.
be about being the default parent, like those kinds of topics. So yeah, I'm slowly writing it. I have a few chapters, and now what I'm doing is having people on Instagram reach out to me with their experiences, their thoughts about all these different topics, so I can kind of incorporate their stories into the book as well, because that's part of what I
Mhm.
love doing, is like sharing everyone's differing experiences with these topics.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I love the idea of just like a spot where you can read a lot of different perspectives, where
Yeah.
instead, like most books are about like, here's my perspective. It's up to you to figure out the others. It might be nice. Like when I'm on a discovery call with clients and they're like on the fence, I'm like, just feel this out. Like there's no rush, and you like have a chat with lots of different people, and there's lots of different
Mhm.
ways to look at this is my way that I do it, but I'm not beholden to just this either. There's lots of different ways. I feel like that would be really
Yeah.
empowering for a lot of new moms who
Yeah, and
are,
like
yeah.
I'm really good
Oh,
at
sorry, go ahead.
sharing my experiences and things that happen to me, and then I get messages from people saying, "Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, you're validating how I've been feeling, and I've been feeling the exact same way, and it's super helpful to know that other people are going through the same thing." But like we're all going through very similar things. So it's like, well, here's a book where here's my experience, but look at all these other moms that also are
Hmm.
going through the same thing, right? So it just kind of amplifies the message that we're all going through these things.
I love that. And is anything about your background in psychology, is that going to be a part of the book at all? Is it more like an experience of like a mom being on the internet for a long
I think
time?
it'll be similar, I think, to my blogs, just kind of
Yeah.
expanded and more in depth. So nothing really specific about my background and my like psychology or anything like that. But
Right.
um obviously my training in psychology kind of shapes how I think about things. So I always say that, like, because people say, "Yeah, I'm so surprised you're not using your PhD. Like, you did all that work." And it's like, no, I use it every day. Like, all these thoughts that I have and things that I come up with are
Mhm.
because of training that I have. So,
How does one use a PhD?
like, in the
How would
traditional
it look
sense.
to others? Yeah, exactly. Like, what would satisfy your following to be
Yeah.
like, look, here I'm using it.
Yeah.
I'm
Look,
doing
I'm
this.
a
Like,
professor.
I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
I love that. So, okay, what you are obviously like like I said, when I was on your podcast, I had so many people reach out to be like, "Oh my God, I'm fangirling." And I would love to know who your favorite people are on the internet, who's showing up first in your feed, TikTok, Instagram, or otherwise. Sorry
Yeah.
to put you on the spot.
It's funny. I always, especially when I first started the mom room and gaining like followers and a platform, people would always be like, like, what mom accounts do you follow? And I was like, none. I had never really, and I still don't consume
Yeah.
a lot of content at all. I scroll TikTok. Um, Some of my favorite TikTok, I really love Domestic Blisters on TikTok. She was on my podcast
Oh,
not too long ago.
okay.
She talks about like keeping house and basically just like self compassion and stuff like that. I think, and she started in the pandemic as well, or in quarantine as well, because she was struggling with like kids and keeping the house, clean. And
Mhm.
so, anyways, I really like her and her
Ah,
message. And then on Instagram, I watch the birds papayas stories. And then sometimes I go to
yeah.
that little for you. I don't know what it's called on Instagram, but like the
Yep.
for you page where it's just
Yeah.
like a
Explore
curated,
page.
yeah, explore.
Mhm.
And I'll like scroll that. And I don't know. Sometimes you click on something and then you just get sucked down a rabbit hole of like looking at random accounts
So
and
true.
different posts. And
Yes.
but yeah, I don't really consume that much content. Do you, like, what about you? Who do
I'm
you?
so I, well, going back to like my original thing where I was worried I was going to insult you, like when people are like, "Do you know the mom room?" It's like, "Oh my god, there's so much out there."
Yeah.
Um I also followed the birds papaya. I'm just so happy she had a baby because
Yeah.
I think that she's doing a lot of really good things for motherhood messages. Like I just loved her for body positivity stuff. I followed her for years, but I just am like, you're the perfect person to have a baby.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of these messages.
Yeah.
Um, I love Jillian Harris.
Yeah.
I think she's a really inspiring businesswoman.
Mhm.
So I watch her a lot. I'm really into, oh God, I'm going to butcher her name. You know, the woman who sleepwalks on TikTok? Spooky
With
something.
the
Oh,
videos, like, it's funny?
yes, it
Yeah.
is funny. So, like, basically, she has a sleepwalking disorder. So they're like, well, let's record ourselves. And it's just, I can't, I have to send you this when
I've
we're
seen
done.
one video and I was like, "No."
I know it. Like, the amount of, like, self confidence and lack of shame you would have to, like, oh, I won't even drink a glass of wine and go on the internet, let alone film myself in my lizard brain state. Like, no one needs to see or hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that she does that. Yeah, I'm really into those accounts just off the top of my head. But I wondered, like, what does a what does a TikTok star watch? And I think it's funny that you're like, oh, I just like do my own thing, like funny things on the internet.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I'm very much the same. And I haven't like it's hard. Oh, you know who I love? What's her name? Like Flossy Bossy or something? Flossy Boss. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
Shoot. She is like I think 20 years old, but just so funny. Like she just have you ever seen that video where she's like she's calling her dad because her car broke down or something. And she's like, and the guy is telling me I need my oil changed. Okay. I
I
don't know.
haven't. You have to send this to me.
It, I've also just realized by doing that like recreating a TikTok is like recreating a joke, and I'll never do that again. So I'm sorry. I'm like, as I was doing it, I was like, ugh, feels uncomfortable.
It's like one of those things
Uh,
where you're like, you have to see it. You have to see it, I guess.
you have to see it. And then because I ruined it, when you do see it, you'll be like, she did say that.
Yeah.
It's just okay. I also really enjoyed that you're into the Real Housewives.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I like no one is. So a podcast that you have to listen to is Bitch Sesh. I think I told you
Oh.
that the last time we talked, but it's so good.
I have to check that out. I haven't There's a few seasons of Housewives that I haven't seen that I need to see. It's just there's so many
Yeah.
seasons that it's
Yeah.
overwhelming. Like, I remember a long time ago, I started from season 1, episode 1, Real Housewives of New York, and I watched the
Hmm.
entire thing. So now,
Hmm.
like, I finished Dallas. I just did Salt Lake City. So good. Um,
So good.
yeah. So I'm on Sydney right now. Have you seen that one?
Oh, no. I haven't seen any outside of the States
Oh,
besides the
okay.
Toronto one a couple of years ago.
Okay.
My favorite franchise is Atlanta. It wasn't always, but I watched on my second mat leave. I watched 10 seasons, I think. Maybe it
Wow.
was 8, something on my second mat leave. I was in a bad place and it lifted me out of it.
Oh, nice. See, that's one I've seen episodes here and there throughout the entire series. So
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to start from the beginning because there's going to be so many episodes and things going on that I've already seen, but I need to watch it
Yes.
from the beginning.
Uh, I'm telling, like, Nene Leakes, Kim Zolciak, and Sheree Whitfield, I think her last name is, are the funniest women I have ever seen. Like, Kim Zolciak is kind of like funny, not on purpose, but Nene Leakes is very, very funny. Like, I will laugh out loud. So that is your homework when you
Okay.
have all that time.
Okay. Will do.
We are coming to the end of our episode. I think I could talk to you forever, but I won't. I try to make this nap the entire length of a crap nap. So, unfortunately, if your child is up, they are now screaming at you. You should go get them. And then you should jump on a call with me so I can help you lengthen those naps. See what I did there? That was a good
Yes.
one. We're going to leave it here for now. As always, you can find me at www.babysbestsleep.com. Renee, where can people find you?
Yes. So on Instagram and TikTok at the.mom.room, I have the Mom Room podcast, which is everywhere. And my website is reneerena.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Coming,
Coming.
staying in
Yeah.
your house,
Coming to
coming
this.
into that room.
Yes.
See you later.
Bye.